Let me ask you this. Post-traumatic stress, did you diagnose him to have post-traumatic stress disorder eventually?
Eventually, yes.
Post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury of the type that he had. Are the symptoms similar, different? Is there a correlation?
There is an unequivocal similarity, overlap of symptoms related to PTSD and those related to a traumatic brain injury. In fact, it's a remarkable coincidence. So the same behavioral changes in terms of anxiety, depressive disorders, panic disorders, the same physical symptoms, frequently in terms of headaches and dizziness, the same cognitive symptoms in terms of problems with thinking and memory. There's a commonality between those two syndromes, which is well published in the literature, and makes one thing in point of fact that the PTSD syndrome, as I've already mentioned to you, is physically based, and in fact it is physically based. But we had not thought that the structures involved with PTSD were the same as those with the traumatic brain injury, but again, they apparently share a number of defects, a number of malfunctions in terms of their symptomatic presentation.
Okay, I'm not going to get into all the PTSD issues. That'll be other physicians. But what I'd like to ask you is, can you say that all these symptoms that he continues to have are from his mild traumatic brain injury, or they're from the PTSD, or one resolved or the other's resolved? What can you say about that?
Because we have a number of mechanisms in play, traumatic brain injury, PTSD, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, the physical problems which limit his ability to function, the change in his life so that he's no longer functioning in a way that he previously wanted to perform, that is, as a motorcycle police officer. We have a number of factors, all of which in combination are contributory. For Michael, I can't be sure to a medical probability that the traumatic brain injury is still a significant part of his problem. Could it be? Absolutely. But our ability to make that judgment based on testing techniques is not adequate in this particular situation.
So it could be resolved, the mild traumatic brain injury, but he could still have all these symptoms from the other problems.
Absolutely.
Or it may not be resolved, and it's related.
Exactly.
But does it matter what is the cause of the symptoms to him?
It depends. It could matter in the sense that if we're dealing with pain generating his cognitive inefficiency. Inefficiency simply means this. If you're trying to think of something and you're in a lot of pain, you can't focus to the same extent. So even though if we took the pain away, your mind would be fine, with the pain it's not fine. So that's the inefficiency versus the structural injury. I can't tell at this point whether, in point of fact, we can resolve the problems by dealing with non-brain injury mechanisms, or whether we have to hope that the brain eventually will come to a peaceful resolution and in fact will return to its native uninjured state. The likelihood is that the other problems are significant. There are too many factors at play here for me to make a definitive judgment, particularly given the fact that the time that I last saw him in June of last year, 3.5 years after the injury, or I beg your pardon, so that's 2014, so we're saw him about 3 years after the injury, but in fact he still was significantly symptomatic. That could be the traumatic brain injury, it can be the PTSD, it can be the inability to sleep restfully, it could be the chronic pain that he's experiencing. All of these are contributory.
Okay. The fact